even
Welcome to 5 o'clock on this glorious Tuesday afternoon. This is the City Council of Pflugerville work session. And our first item on the agenda is a joint meeting with City Council and the Equity Commission regarding the Equity Commission listening sessions, objectives, and duties. We have Ms. Brianna Higgins, Special Projects Manager, to help us out. And I want to especially thank the members of the Equity Commission for being here with us today. Corey and Claudia, it's great to see you. Brianna.
Good evening, Council. So tonight we're going to go over the listening sessions report. You received it in a weekly update. It's also attached to this agenda item. The Equity Commission has already gone through this report. They accepted the report with minor amendments, and so tonight we're presenting that amended report. For a high overview, we had 6 sessions scheduled. Each Equity Commission member was tasked with helping organize a session. We only had 5 conducted. These occurred from May through September, and I'll touch on why we had 6 scheduled but 5 conducted in just a minute. Approximately 38 attendees with 6 online survey respondents. The reason why it's an approximate number and not an exact number is that attendees were welcome to provide a demographic survey just so we had a rough estimate of who we spoke with, but that was an optional survey. Our sessions were hosted at the Circle of Hope, St. Elizabeth's Catholic Church, and we had a session hosted at the Pflugerville Justice Center and the Pflugerville Library. I mentioned that we had 6 sessions scheduled, but 5 conducted. We had a session set to occur in Vietnamese. Unfortunately, we did not have attendees for that session, so while we were prepared to host the session, we didn't have anyone there to participate. And we'll talk on what we could do better in the future to get more attendees. We also had a session hosted in Spanish, and we did have attendees attend that session. I'm going to give a high overview of some common themes throughout the report. The report's about 16 pages, so I'm just going to give you a high overview of some of the common themes that we heard throughout these sessions. We'll touch on what is happening now, some of the improvements we could see, and what our residents would like to see, our community would like to see in the future. Some of the now. We overwhelmingly heard that residents love the small town charm of Pflugerville, that we have the amenities of a city, but we still have this kind of unique charm. They really enjoy the local restaurants and local businesses that we have, that there's this unique identity that we support our small businesses. It's not that we just have small businesses, but that we support our small businesses. That it's friendly and welcoming. Some of the anecdotes we heard was that they could walk outside in their neighborhood and their neighborhood was diverse. It wasn't that you could see all of the same type of person in their neighborhood, that each neighbor was a little bit different. And then that they love our trails and parks, that they can take, that it's dog friendly and they can take their family to all of the wonderful trails and parks we have. Some of the improvements we heard was affordability. It was mentioned not just affordability in the sense of rent and housing prices, but affordability to be able to retire here as well. We heard traffic, mobility, and connection, and I'm also going to go on to the next point of accessibility, and it's more than just being able to get to one place or another, but accessibility also to information, to education, to one another, to resources, not just accessibility in the sense of American Disabilities Act compliance, but in the sense that they can actually access information and people. As well as education. Education on items such as homeowner, first-time home buyer information. It briefly touched on the school district, PFISD. There was some feedback about having more diversity within PFISD, and mentioning some teachers as well. And then education as well on what it means to be an extraterritorial jurisdiction resident, not fully understanding what that meant and where they could and could not participate.
Brianna, that's interesting what you said about accessibility from a first-time homeowner standpoint. Was that brought up multiple times, or was that brought up in one specific session?
Mainly within our first 2 sessions that occurred at Circle of Hope, that was mentioned.
Interesting.
I think when you mention accessibility and things like first-time homebuyer programs, I think I saw in the report there were a lot of comments about, I'm going to say, coordination with other organizations. Are you going to get to that? Am I getting ahead of myself?
No.
Okay. The idea that we've got different food banks, different senior support, different support for children, and they're really independent organizations with no real cohesive communication strategy. Is that? I think that's fallen under the same accessibility. Can you tell me more about that and what people are really asking for?
A big part of the conversation was not knowing where the resources were or how to access the resources that are out there. And so, for example, some of the conversations that occurred at Circle of Hope was about the resources that Circle of Hope offers, but how do they share resources that maybe the city knows about or that the county might have? Really the education of what's out there and what's available and who you can get in contact with on those items.
So I'm curious. Sometimes we say education when really what we mean is I'm going to say more facilitation, and by that I mean I heard the story of an individual who they said their water was going to get shut off. They couldn't pay their bill, and they were looking for ways to find help paying their bill. Well, the first issue is, well, are they a City of Pflugerville customer, or are they a Southwest Water or an Aqua or a Manville or something else? And I don't know that anyone to educate their water is, but they know when it's a problem, right? It's at that point that it matters to most people. And then obviously assisting them with a way to find a way to get help with their bill, whether that's a delay on the water being shut off, or some organization that has funding, or I know we offered funding through ARPA for a good long time. Is that something that's coming out of this? Is that something where we're recommending a way of facilitating the communication, the collaboration?
Yep, there are some recommendations within the report about facilitating workshops on items such as first-time homebuyer ownership, what it means to be an ETJ resident, those types of conversations.
What's interesting is that there's plenty of times that we do, like whenever we're doing stuff in the county level, asset maps. So people are cognizant and aware, and they're where to go, and we actually know what our assets are. Like, okay, listen, you can go here and go from there. Like even with water, electricity. I mean, they're our church. It's one of the places that folks go to. Specifically, our church. Yeah, our church. That's where people go to. But they're not cognizant, just like what you said of that. And I think that would be interesting to see where our resources truly lie in there. I mean, Darrell's in the audience over here. I have been saying for a decade regarding the food banks and everything. I just do not know. You're smiling, but I do not understand why we don't work more together as a cohesive unit on that, because there is more than enough of a need over there with that. But I feel like everybody has their own piece of the pie with that, and it's a very frustrating thing that we still haven't gotten a handle of that with that as well. But maybe if with the city facilitating and having that sort of conversation, discussion with that may make a monster difference. And saying, hey, listen, we're not trying to get on your turf. What we're trying to do is trying to utilize and bring people together on that. What are you thinking?
I think I've worked closely with several of them. I know you have too, but they have different modes. Okay, so one gets food from a government source, and they have strict guidelines in terms of how they have to distribute that food and the data that they have to collect. Another one gets food and gives it to anybody that comes up with zero guidelines and less oversight. And so those are probably examples of two extremes, and you probably have some that are in the middle. And so some have certain schedules on days they meet, and people, and they're geographically distributed, so that people know where to go to. And so I don't know, and maybe the consternation you're feeling from them not coming together more is because they operate more efficiently independently. I know we talked a couple years ago. We had a work session that we had 4 of the entities here, and we talked about maybe finding a cohabitating space where they could store and have one inspection and all that. And I think that kind of dissolved from funding, but then it also dissolved because everyone started talking about, well, where am I going to have my part? What, it was still, they were still independent, even though it was trying to be a conglomerate. And so I don't know if there is it's a simple question, right?
Well,
But I
so
don't know there's a simple solution.
I think the benefit is, I'm naturally inclined to hop straight to problem solving. But I don't want to go ahead and say, hey, this is how we're going to solve it. I want to hear how y'all think we should solve problems like that. So I'm gonna go back to you guys.
I do one other thing, Serena. You brought this up for years, and I laughed when I first saw it on here. Small town. I know. That like literally that was the like as soon as I saw that I was like, oh, okay. I can imagine how you feel.
According to the census, we're a big city.
Yeah. So
large city. Sorry.
So kind of expand on that. There might be constantly a little apprehension when people say that because there's some things that go along with that kind of thought process.
Well, whenever we're called small,
Yeah.
I mean, we're top 5% largest cities in the state of Texas, Texas being the 7th largest GDP in the world. We sit 14 miles from a state capital that is worldwide known. We sit 13 miles from that little school called University of Texas that is widely known as one of the largest. I think when we continue to think small, we behave small. I think whenever people think in the terms of that, we don't know our worth, and when you don't know your worth, you don't strive in economic development. You don't strive in ways to be high performing. So I think that that's one of our worst enemies is to think small. That is different than small town charm.
Yeah.
That is different than a feeling. So I believe that you can foster a feeling in a place and still expect the best.
Yeah,
That's,
I think it's a community like coming together. Like it's the tight knitness of the community. It's all these resources. They may be distributed, but they're still working toward a single goal in the community. So I think it brings that small town feel in, and that's nice to have because you have unification of citizens. But like working with nonprofits and making sure that maybe there's a central resource center or something like that that houses all that information in one place. I went around town and I gathered about 100 or 200 different community members that all do something in the community, and I have a big book like about that big that a community member gave me. So there. People go to the food bank, but they're also having trouble like paying their bills and things like that. And the food bank doesn't know how to actually tell them where to go, how to do this. Could we hand out a flyer? Could we hand out some information to them in a way to get them the resources they need?
So they exist, but they're not necessarily well known.
Yeah.
And I think on this, back to the small town, I think what I took away from the sessions I was in was appreciating and wanting to maintain a self of safety, and which you don't typically associate with a large city, right? So wanting to, that is a very highly valued aspect of our community that people don't want to lose as we grow in particular.
So even though we grow, doesn't mean our values have to change.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm
And
gonna.
how do
and
we
if I
continue to
if I
foster
may,
that?
I usually don't speak. I apologize. When I talk about a feeling of a town, it's kind of like I don't want to just look at police statistics because the story to me is really, can my child walk down the street at 8 p.m. to the neighbor's house and feel safe? There's a feeling that I think we can't overlook whenever we talk about safest city in Texas is that because, yes, crime's going to happen. And I'm not a believer that we can prevent every crime. That's not something that a community can do. What we can do is create feeling of safety because of our behaviors. And
Absolutely. And
that's
that
how we do
and that
small.
was the comment that I heard, which was a feeling that I can leave my door unlocked. Now
That's
I
right.
don't recommend that. I watch too many crime shows to do that. But a feeling that, unlike other communities perhaps that they've lived in.
Oh, there are some people who leave their doors
Yeah, I know.
unlocked. They live in my house.
I've
I
done
get
it a
after
number
my
of times,
kids.
yes. Quite on accident. No, I'm going to harken back to my campaigning days, but I say small town feel is three things. It's feeling safe in your community. It's knowing your neighbors, as you were saying, Claudia, looking outside and knowing your neighbors. and it's feeling as though your voice is valued. So the fact that you can reach out to any of us and that we will take action, the fact that when you say something that isn't right, that we say, oh goodness, we need to fix that. And I think in a large city, an individual's voice can get lost very, very easily, and to maintain that small town charm, it's quite a bit of communication and responsiveness. So it sounds like that's what you guys experienced as well.
And I mean, to take it a step further, I would also add like engaging the community and taking responsibility for that safety too, right? It's not just the police department's responsibility or any public safety agency. Like, how do we engage community members in continuing to foster that?
And I think that's what was good about the equity tour, kind of listening tour, because it went down to where people were and actually went to the spaces, and we got into those spaces, and the conversation was very fruitful in that way. They were less. It wasn't the Justice Center. It wasn't. It wasn't the courthouse or anything like that. People feel a little bit more relaxed in their own environment. So.
No, we went to them instead of brought them to us, right?
Crazy concept.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to move on to some of the things we heard about the future of Pflugerville. Some of the questions we asked were, what are your hopes for the future of Pflugerville? What do you hope never changes? And if you could describe some words on what you hope Pflugerville looks like in the future, what would those be? And so we heard affordability, affordable access to housing, and the missing middle. That is a term that someone did say, not just a term that we use. They want us to remain unique, friendly,
Right,
and
you're saying you didn't volunteer that term?
I did not.
Did they define missing middle for you?
They did not.
Okay, I'm just curious because it seems like the developers tell us that the missing middle is rental homes, whereas I think the missing middle is owned condos.
That's what I was saying too.
I want to understand what the community actually wants and make sure we're listening to them.
And I think affordability, getting into the community, like setting that equity and having that equity, it helps you grow wealth over time.
Right.
And if you can't start at a $500,000 house, you're blocked out and you're renting. So the more people that we can get housed, they grow their wealth too.
So smaller ownership chunks, I think, is really valuable there.
So
that's
Corey,
how we build equity. Yeah.
We're going to send you down to the legislature in a couple months because that's going to be one of the big issues at a hearing last week, and that's one of the biggest issues about how breaking in. And just like you said, I mean, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
If you aren't building your equity, like in your home ownership right there, how are you going to get into the other houses as you grow with that as well? And honestly, that's how you pass generational wealth in this country. I think it's 84% of the people, it's through property, in their home ownership. So, but it's an issue that's going to be under assail this coming session for sure.
We also heard about having more locally owned shops and businesses. So while big box stores are great to have, the feedback was that they really like having those locally owned, unique, small town charm feel of businesses. Improved mobility and infrastructure, connection to roadways and sidewalks, items like that, and then housing as well, having more housing available. So some listening tour recommendations. Now, within the packet, there are a ton of recommendations listed. So I've only put just a couple up on the screen because then you'd be here forever reading the screen, and I advise against that. We also have some recommendations for future listening sessions. So I'm just going to go over a few of those recommended actions. So as we discussed earlier, facilitating conversations with the community, having open meetings to discuss community issues, feedback, and that open dialogue on topics that matter to our community. Hosting workshops such as financial literacy, what it means to be an ETJ resident, items like that. And then ensuring that some feedback that we heard were making sure that homeowner associations and neighborhood groups are included in discussions about community services, so that if you need assistance or you're looking for a resource, that you might be able to turn to your HOA for assistance and what that might look like.
Are the Equity Commission meetings open to the public, correct?
Yes.
So when you say organized open meetings, you mean more listening sessions specifically?
listening sessions or topic-specific discussions.
Gotcha. And how do you, I don't want to, market's not really the word, but make sure that residents are actually aware of when the Equity Commission is meeting so that they always know that there's an open invitation to come and just listen?
So all of our, just like all of our council meetings and our boards and commission meetings, we do post when our equity commission meetings occur. So they are available on our website and on our city calendar when we have our equity commission meetings.
Do you feel like it could have some more attention in any way to, I mean, if it's just the regular stuff that's posted, how could we really highlight this? Because every city's not doing this. It's a really big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it, and we've talked about it before and we haven't done it, so it's sort of an obvious low hanging fruit would be to actually get on the agenda of some of these community groups to make sure they're aware that the commission exists and make a more deliberate outreach effort, you know. We don't
Yeah.
have to boil the ocean, but we can start somewhere and build on it.
Yeah, I think partnering with
Is it on the water bill?
yeah,
don't-
I think partnering with local community organizations and members, I think like we did at the food bank, like it got a lot of people in interest and they were able to promote that to their folks. And so like if we can have, you know, private content contacts with those folks, we could probably expand the reach and the awareness. I don't think there's the amount of awareness that we even exist. So it might be something that we want to get in community impact or something to that extent to, hey, we're here for you, we have this. Just extend that olive branch.
Thank you.
And I wonder, on the third bullet, I mean, there are so many homeowners associations and neighborhood groups. Is it really, you know, is it feasible to go on ahead and try to reach out to all of them to try to recycle Kona?
That can
Icona was actually spelled out in
It
in
is.
the report.
Yeah. No, I mean literally, because I would talk to people and they don't know it.
What
Right.
is that?
It was the Pflugerville Council of Neighborhood Associations. It was
What did you call it?
Fakona.
Kona.
It was an independent organization that was a conglomerate of the HOAs, basically the HOA presidents and the
Sounds nice.
management companies would come together. I think there might be another model for that in the future.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we can go to them or they can come to us, but we can
Rather
probably
than
coordinate
reaching
and
out to every
facilitate
one of them.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that might work better.
because that's the thing is that, and you know, we can get a list of everyone's meetings, and but for us to be at every one of them makes sense. But we need to have somebody like a champion was before for Fakona, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's willing to go ahead and
Yeah, and I get my emails from our HOA, but I don't always read them as far as updated stuff. I mean, if I'm not getting a fine, I just kind of
Or getting
And-
someone
and
else's
moving on.
fine like I got.
I think mine meets on council nights, so
Yeah, there's it. Okay.
I'm kind of out of luck. But
And
no, I think that's a great opportunity for us in the future, and there's some strategies we can implement to better facilitate that.
Wonderful. Okay.
I have to say, I'm concerned about the very small sample size here. Corey, you mentioned you have a binder with 200 names in it?
Well, yeah, it's community organizations
Okay.
that facilitate anything from donations to handing out food or mailboxes with food in them. Or I have kind of that facilitated. I work with Circle of Hope and then the Methodist Church and as well. So just I think there could be a lot more. They're so distributed actually, and some of them are a little bit in their own zone, and they're not actually like reaching out and interacting. And it's like almost the city's ability to facilitate that interaction in a way that could, you know, foster a little bit more cohesion for the distributing of resources. It's not as efficient as it could be. But yeah,
So that's not 200 individuals, that's the name of 200 groups.
groups.
Each of those headed by an individual, I imagine.
Or
Or somebody. Yeah, some way, somehow they have come together as a group.
So I'm wondering, why did we only get an average of 6 people per session? And, you know, why weren't we able to get more than that? And I'm also concerned about what appears to be homogeneity among the respondents. Correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't the majority of the respondents middle-aged white women?
I mean, homogeneity.
So one thing that we found during the sessions and we heard was that the community members that participated didn't know opportunities like this existed, and it was really more so this is the first time that we've done such a tour. I think there was also some confusion on what it was because we hadn't done it before, and so we recognized that there wasn't a ton of, we didn't have hundreds of people attend, but the community members that did attend did have great feedback, and they really engaged with one another and were appreciative of the opportunity to provide that feedback, even if it wasn't feedback that you might be comfortable hearing.
Because I was about to say, I stopped by 2 or 3 of them, and they weren't lost for conversation.
I know. I'm just.
But people may not be, because I'm thinking about, so I stopped by, you would have one, I guess the Circle of Hope was during the day.
Yep.
You had some after work, and you had some of the other areas. It's the first time doing it because we haven't done that. Do you remember years ago when what did we call it, Serena? We got together and we were like part of the council would meet.
When we did Talk the Walk.
So, yeah.
Walk the talk.
Yeah, and
we did some town halls at one point.
Yeah, the town hall. Yeah, remember that, right? So, and it was when we did the town hall, like, oh, I didn't know y'all do this. Wow, this is, and I think it's getting people used to, hey, listen, we are really out there doing that. We are really listening to you. We're taking this information. Now there's a specific report that the notes and reflect such like, hey, we don't just take what you say and throw it in there, because that was what you said was something I was consistently heard from people ready to me. It's like, I didn't know y'all do this. I didn't know exactly this is. Wow, y'all are actually listening to us. I don't know if they thought we were just going to tell them stuff, or I don't know, feed them or anything else with that as well. But it was, even when I brought my youngest daughter, she even noticed that. She's like, Daddy, I was like, yeah, they're debating.
Yeah, I had to let them kind of go into their own thing and then leave me out.
Yeah.
I'm just a facilitator.
Yeah.
And so how I tried to look at it, and I think they respected that. They enjoyed that community building, I think.
Well, to his point, their voice was being heard.
Yeah.
We're not telling them what.
And that's where you get back to the small town.
Yeah.
The town's going out to you instead of you coming into the town and maybe getting up there to that podium.
I wonder if we might get more feedback if we went, to your point, Corey, directly to them. If we say, engage with a church and say, I understand you have a Wednesday night meeting. Can we come to the Wednesday night meeting and make a presentation? And it will be not a random collection of people from the community. It'll be people from that church and maybe a few outsiders. And then go to another church, and then, go to Rotary or
Lions Club.
Or Lions Club. Engage, to use the phrase, go to the people where they are, rather than setting up a meeting and hoping that 6 Vietnamese speaking strangers walk in. I'm just thinking more, a proactive reach out rather than a passive, hey, we're having a meeting, come on by.
Yeah.
Might get us at least a larger sample. I don't know that it might be less representative because, these are people who belong to these organized groups. But, go to the Falcon Point HOA. Go to, of course, some areas of town don't have HOAs. Those poor people in Old Town with no HOA, can you imagine their suffering? Not having an HOA to tell them what to do?
They have front porches where people gather.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
With rocking chairs.
Yes.
Barbershop, Saturday mornings, I got some places for you.
There you go.
Okay, so
There you go.
that's another excellent, excellent choice.
That is a wonderful segue into the recommendations for the future, and
Yes.
much of that is within the report on what do you do about future listening sessions? If this is repeated, if
Where we meet.
council would like the equity commission to continue this, some of the feedback is that we have those targeted sessions. Doing this for the first time, we didn't know what to expect. Would the community even be interested in doing this? Do they want to provide feedback in this manner? We see an interest there, but we do see that some of the feedback was very general because our questions were very general. So having more targeted topics or just more discussions with certain groups like the Lions Club, going out into the community just a little bit more to have those discussions. The Equity Commission members were tasked with finding locations and inviting individuals and groups to the sessions, and we've learned that we can do better, right? We can always do better. The point on the Vietnamese community and why we did not have as much participation. We had beautiful, amazing volunteers attend that session to help us translate, because I do not speak Vietnamese. Neither do any of our other commission members.
Are you kidding me?
I know.
Without
I took French in middle school. It was serendipitous, but it was not amazing. And I know very little French now. French does not help me with Vietnamese. But what we learned from the community members that were there to volunteer and assist us was that we needed to advertise these sessions where they are. And the recommendations from them were to go to the shops that they shop at, go to the nail salons that they may be at. That came from them, to meet them where they're at and provide the opportunity to them there. Some of the feedback was that the reason why they may not have wanted to participate is that they just wanted to be under the radar, and they didn't feel like that's not usually something that they like to do. And so it is an effort that we're aware of, and we can always do better in how we advertise that. Yeah. We did advertise the listening sessions online.
You did.
We did have flyers. We did push it. We had ads.
Utility bill everywhere.
Bill
It was,
everywhere.
What did you say, the water bill?
yes.
So we did push it out. And we started early on in the summer sharing all of the future dates, so that if you saw that you couldn't attend in May, you might be able to go to the session that was in September. So we made a very conscious effort. We also made sure that they were throughout the week, throughout different times, to see what we could get the most participation in. So those future sessions, that is a continued recommendation, is that you have a variety of times, you have a variety of locations, you continue to go into the community. The library was a popular host spot.
I was really surprised by not only how many people were there, but you tried to end the meeting and you couldn't. They kept talking and they took it out to the hallway and everything else. And there were just random groups of people just talking. They're like, wow.
My favorite
I've
moment
experienced that
was a
before.
resident went out into the library and brought another resident back. She was like, I want to hear your voice. And she brought them in, and it was
That's awesome.
a wonderful conversation. During these sessions, staff was in attendance, staff took notes, staff did not participate in the conversation. We did not answer questions unless the commission member that was facilitating felt it was appropriate to, but we really let it be a conversation. So we didn't interject with any information or opinions, strictly took notes. And so did the facilitators. They just facilitated the conversation and made sure that it ran smoothly. So after this listening tour, those are some of the recommendations we have. The Equity Commission is open to provide any additional feedback that I didn't provide. The next steps are The next steps are to reconvene the Equity Commission, go through these recommendations that are within the report if council feels that they are on the right track, and identify what the Equity Commission's next responsibilities will be over the next year.
So I will only say I do see, the idea of workshops on specific topics. What I've heard throughout is the need for coordination and collaboration, facilitation of certain programs. So I'd love to see more on that. But I'd ask Claudia or Corey, do you have any other specific recommendations that you want us to pursue?
I mean, it's about like when we're saying meeting them in the community, like having flyers. I think flyers go a long way more than the internet all the time. So because I scroll and I don't look, so like making sure that like there's little handouts or something at bars or something. But that I think that you could extend that into kind of a, let's see, I got it right here. Kind of like a buy local Pflugerville thing. To like something I learned from living in Nashville was they had a map of all the small businesses in town. All the small businesses coordinate. They have little advertisements on the flyer. You just put that in all the Arby's, Bojangles, or not Bojangles, sorry, but from the, like
I'm aware of it, but the first time I saw it, I was like, "What in God's name
Yeah.
is going on here?"
hey, I used to work at Arby's and I gave out these flyers, and I think like it was a really good thing to kind of get the community involved
Okay.
and making sure you have like small business incubators and things like that. I think I want to see like the small businesses really kind of take a stage.
To your point, Corey. So when you hear, what is it, a couple? Man, that has to be more than a couple years. Remember the whole buy local campaign the chamber did, and
What was it? They had a trademark. It was
Shop local.
shop
well,
local.
but it
The
was
day after Thanksgiving.
there
Was it?
Well, no, there's that. They had that. They had that whole catchy
They
slogan
did.
that I can't remember
And
anymore.
then they had the, to your point, they had the places.
Come home to
go.
shop.
Yeah,
Come home to shop.
Yeah,
That was it.
and they had the places
Yeah.
listed. Like here you go. Here's a map. Everything else from there as well.
Yeah.
that might
I
be
used to give them
something very
crap
well.
because
Shop
you should
Pflugerville.
you should be able to stay home to shop too.
Shop Pflugerville
But,
first.
yeah, just shop Pflugerville first.
I like that
PFIRST.
too.
That's
I
what
do like that.
Just a
It is better.
coordinated more
Come home and
emphasis
shop.
on like where
Come
are
home to
these
shop.
small businesses and who are these small businesses, and like buy local, go local, stay in the small town community, and it kind of brings people together on a different level, and it keeps money in the community too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Claudia,
Yeah, I was going to add, and it kind of goes back to the facilitation. Like, there's so many groups and people doing good things, but they're siloed, right? And it would be great just to see some more intentionality behind bringing all those resources, more coordination so that they're making the maximum impact in our community, which they're all trying to do,
Yeah.
but it's hard to access. So,
So take Corey's binder.
Everyone
Start
has
going
the
with
right,
these
everyone
groups.
has the right intentions, but they're all kind of running in different spaces right now. And I think that comes back to education too, like uh, facilitating job training programs or financial literacy workshops, or even I have home ownership and renters' rights stuff like that, because people struggle with that. They don't know where to get those resources. So, like, let's partner with people in the community, and we can bring those up in.
and I think, continuing to do these going forward, I think it's a great way to have like a two-way learning ability, right? Like, it was kind of eye-opening to me. Maybe it wouldn't be to you all because you sit on council and maybe you see or hear these conversations more than I do. But, seeing the commonalities among different groups of people, that they care about the same things, right? Like safety, cleanliness, the infrastructure. So, or the nuances in the community, like what Brianne described with the Vietnamese community. It was new information to me to hear that there's a certain level of distrust of government in general, not city council specifically, but generally that impacts how willing they are to participate and how they participate. So I think there's learnings that can continue to occur by having this interaction, and just again, to make maximum impact with these communities for the betterment of them and of Pflugerville. There's a lot of opportunity there.
thank you. I think that's everything. I want to specifically thank you for facilitating and for taking it upon yourselves to attend and to help and make these listening sessions happen. I know that was a lot of work for you, and I don't know if you expected that when you signed up for the Equity Commission, but I'm glad that you followed through on that. So thank you very much.
Y'all are different.
Thank you.
I mean, we said that when we were picking this year. We said explicitly this was going to operate differently from other commissions, and this is a crazy concept. This is part of what we envisioned.
This is how we
Yeah.
make a difference. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for being here tonight. We will move on to item 2B and item 2C. I'm sorry, do we have any more comments on
The mayor's.
I know. He'll take over. We're going to retire to executive session under item 2B for consultation with legal counsel pursuant to section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code regarding filing of suit against Arch Construction Company and 123 Builders, as well as item 2C, discussion in accordance with Texas Government Code section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, and section 551.071, consultation with attorney related to downtown east development. And at the time is 5:40. We are in executive session.
Executive session, no action was taken. We're adjourned.
I thought we had to.
No, we
Not
can't
that one
take-
later
we
on?
can't- we don't
Later,
take
oh,
action.
later.
Yeah, we don't take action in work sessions.